Welcome back to another recording of the Elevate Media Podcast. I'm Chris Anderson, your host, and today we're going to be diving into why it's so important to master your messaging, to stand out in an ocean filled with other people doing what you're doing. And so we brought on an expert who does just that, and he does it through marketing books, and he's been super successful marketing his own books, marketing books for others. And so we're super excited to have this conversation. Michael Drew, welcome to the episode today.
Thanks for having me, Chris. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. With this, what got you, we're going to dive right into it. What got you so excited and passionate about, marketing books and helping people kind of get that message out there and to stand out?
It's a really good question. Part of it, I think, has to do with my pedigree. My grandfather was the dean of the Library Science School at Brigham Young University. My father was a professor of literature at BYU. My mother was a graduate from the Library Science School. I've been in books since I was a very young boy. So
That's awesome.
But I think one of the things I learned later in life from one of my clients, his name is Garrett Gunderson. He wrote a series of New York Times bestselling books, one of which is titled Killing Sacred Cows, which is his biggest book on wealth management. And back in 2006, when I began working with him, he indicated to me that he has a very unique investment philosophy, which is around an idea or concept called soul purpose, SOUL purpose.
Okay.
And he believes that everyone that is born onto this planet is born with a soul purpose, and that their talents and skills and experiences, the lens through which they view the world, is based on and around that soul purpose. And that soul purpose isn't for you as an individual, but rather your service of your fellow man. But from a financial standpoint, his value then is invest in your soul purpose. Know that what you're investing is something that you intimately know on a very deep level, so that whether it's your own business or whether it's a stock that you're investing in, that you can actually look at and assess whether they're doing a good job or not with your money, right? As
Sure.
an investor.
Yeah.
And so I took that to heart, and we've deployed that with all of our clients and for myself personally. And I've defined my soul purpose as voice, helping people find, test, and amplify their voice. And so a book then is a very natural extension of that amplification of voice.
Sure. Yeah. And I like that. I think, why do you think so many people though struggle to find, that soul, that brand messaging?
Well, I think that actually has to do with the dichotomy in how we're raised and how the theoretical left brain and right hemisphere of the brain works, right? One of the things that we know is that until you're about 8, you're not really human, right? You're not cognitively developed enough to be able to know what's right or wrong and to make determinations.
Sure.
The purpose of the left hemisphere of the brain is to filter out non-essential information. The universe is bombarding us with data, loads of data.
Yeah.
And our species, the Homo sapiens species, we process specific types of that data. Different species, different animals process different bits of data, right? We know that some animals have better hearing or better sight or better smelling or whatever else based on the survival of that species. The Homo sapiens species has a set of data that is relevant to our survival, thrival, and experience. And so the purpose of the left hemisphere then is to filter out all of the non-essential information so that we can be focused on the essential information. Yeah. This conversation that we're having is happening through the left hemisphere of the brain.
Yeah.
Like taste, touch, sound, sight, smell are all these visceral left brain experiences, right? And it's a really powerful thing, this left hemisphere, because it keeps us from harming ourselves by processing too much information. This is also where the human operating system, as some people might put it, gets developed when we're a child. Parents say yes or no, do this, don't do that, become the rule set for our individual operating system. And so what happens over time as we're growing up, this operating system is set, and it creates what people in the personal development space would call self-limiting beliefs or scotomas, which are the electrical wiring in your brain that connects thoughts and feelings together. And this then creates within the individual the limited, self-limited beliefs of what they can and they can't do. Now, to directly answer your question, I know that everybody actually knows what their sole purpose is. What
Okay.
happens is when you were a kid, like 5 to 8, you wanted to be a doctor, lawyer, fireman, a policeman, a member of the military, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Like you wanted to do something, and
Uh-huh.
there was a reason for that. And in that age range, there was no empiricals right or wrong. It was just this is what was most important and valuable to you.
Sure.
And so when we work with a client, one of the things that we do is we work at brushing away all of the self-limiting beliefs and learning in that operating system to be able to get down to the core of the individual. But I believe it's there. It's simply having the courage to accept what that means. Because for many of us, when one of the reasons that keeps us from doing that is that if you don't know your soul purpose and you're not living into it, that means that you're not living into the fullness of who you are, and that's really scary because that means that
Yeah.
you're not living into your complete abilities, and you're not serving people in the way that you should, and that doesn't feel good. And so it's a scary proposition to be able to go and figure that out. But I'm confident. I've never met somebody that we weren't able to define what that is. It's just it's almost a form of psychology to brush away the cobwebs and the
Yeah.
self-limiting beliefs to get to the core of the core.
Yeah, no, I like that. When I was a kid, I wanted to be either James Bond or Indiana Jones. So,
And why, but why? Why did you want to be Indiana Jones or?
yeah, I think, I just liked uncovering secrets, like not like in a gossipy sense, but like um unlocking things, unlocking like what's out there, like finding truth. And James Bond, I think, the excitement, the adventure, the unknown, fighting against evil for good to prevail. So like I think, and now kind of seeing that in what I do, I really like talking with people and helping them uncover things in their life that they might not see in themselves. So uncovering those secrets, uncovering that treasure, so then they can, bring that to the world in a good way and make a positive impact. So like, kind of see how that relates a little bit.
Really quick, would
Yeah,
you say that that treasure in that in the Indiana Jones sense for you is actually about truth?
maybe, yeah. Hmm.
So would you say that your sole purpose is something like uncovering a pathway to truth?
Definitely think that could be worded well. Yeah. Um, and because that's what like lights me up now is being able to talk with people and help them see that like, no, like you don't think you can do that, but you really can because you have these talents and abilities and skills. Like I see them in you, you just don't see them in yourself, and you can bring so much positive to the world by doing that. So yeah, I would say that's probably spot on there. So it's very interesting.
Huh. Yeah, it's like I said, to me, it's there. It's just a
Yeah,
matter of having the courage to do the work and figure it out and then live into it. Because once you
yeah,
know that knowledge brings responsibility.
for sure. Yeah, and so if people do find that, or if they have it, like they're on the direction and they understand that a little bit, and what makes that kind of like become sticky? What makes that messaging stick that they can then go share it with the world and make an impact through their business or services or whatever they're doing?
Great question. So one of the things that we look at in business, generally speaking,
Mhm.
and this is something I'm sure you deploy with your clients,
Yeah.
the first thing that you want to do is define outcome, and then the
Yep.
measurement of the outcome, and then the strategy, and then the tactic. What
Mhm.
most professionals in marketing and advertising focus on is on the tactical elements. They do one
Right.
thing really well, and they want other people to do that one thing, but that misses the forest for the trees, right? And so what we do is we go back up to what is the outcome and the measurement of that outcome. So the first thing you've got to look at is you as an individual, as the business owner. Like you have to define what is the outcome that you want to create and how are you measuring that. So the sole purpose then help dictate the why, which was your original question. But then you need to go into values. What are the values that reflect that why? And
Mhm.
so we take our clients through a process called North Star values, and
Okay.
it kind of works like this. On the ocean of life, there are four kinds of people. There are your drifters. And you know a drifter because they say, yeah, man, I'm just going with the flow. Wherever the tides of happenstance take me, man, yeah, that's where I'm going, right?
Yeah.
They're thrown around by the waves and they go where life takes them. The next kind of person on the ocean of life is your surfer. Now, a surfer is similar to to the drifter,
Yeah.
in that they're beholden to the waves, but at least they're up and having fun, and they're doing something. They're catching one wave or one trend to the next
Sure.
wave or the next trend,
Yep.
right? And so that is where most people define success. I don't define success that way at all. Like you can
Right.
you can create money and wealth and have a lot of fun surfing, but that's not living into the core of who you are.
Yeah.
The next type of person on the ocean of life is your drowner. Now, I'm not talking about the 3 or 4 times in life that we all drown, where we need a helping hand, someone to help us from drowning.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the professional drowners, and we all know professional drowners because they come to us for help today. We help them, and they need help again tomorrow. Like this is their profession. And really, the only thing that you can do with a professional drowner is hold their head underwater until they stop thrashing, because there's no value in life for those folks.
Right.
The final kind of person on the ocean of life is the navigator, right? And so the navigator knows who they are and they know where they're going, and they have a value set to keep them in line with getting there. Now, on the ocean, before technology, you had to navigate at night.
Yep.
Because there are no fixed points on the ocean. And so in the Northern Hemisphere, we use the North Star, and in the Southern Hemisphere, they use the Southern Cross as the fixed point over the axis of the Earth to be able to define if they were in the right trajectory to where their destination is.
Yeah.
Life is similar to that. It's like an ocean. And we're on that ocean. We know what the destination is, which is our sole purpose, but we need to have a set of guiding values, a North Star, if you will, that keeps us in alignment towards that outcome, right? And so the next thing you do is define your value. And the final thing that we do with our clients is we define what the promised land looks like when you get there, right? So what we do is we give them a magic wand, metaphorically, and say, fast forward to the end of your life. And the day before your death and funeral, there's a party in your honor. What are people saying about you? And people don't talk in generalities. Oh, he was a good man, or he was he was helpful, or whatever. No, they talk about specifics. What exactly have you done for the people at that party? What exactly are they saying? And based on that, what we then do is we map out the things from macro to micro, from end of life to today, and working backwards, all of the things that need to be created in order to be able to get people to say those things, right? And so we're then able to define what the business model is for the individual. So if you define sole purpose, your values, and then the outcome of what we're creating, then it's very easy to see what that messaging looks like.
Gotcha. So that messaging then can correlate over to, your marketing, your social media, things like that, correct?
Oh yeah. So we have lots of tools and systems that we use. One of the things that we then do from a client standpoint is you've got you as a business owner, you've got your customer. So we've got a couple of different processes that we apply. On the customer side, we deploy a process called buyer personas, which is a process created by my clients, Brian and Jeffrey Eisenberg, where we borrow from Hollywood and create fictional characters that represent segments of the overall audience, create their backstories so we know why they would be interested in our clients' products or services. And based on the backstory, what would turn them on or turn them off on a buyer persona basis. On the personal brand standpoint, after we create this definition, the next thing we do is create what we call a character diamond. This is also borrowed from Hollywood. This is a tool that's used in defining characters for TV shows, movies, and cartoons. One of the things to note is that when you're dealing in short form content, when you're dealing with marketing, advertising, books, movies, TV shows, these are short form content in context of the totality of a life. People aren't able to understand the nuance of an individual or a character or a brand. Nuance is too complex, and they don't invest the time or energy to understand those nuances for the most part. I mean, there are rabid fans that might, but most people don't really take the time to understand the nuances of the characters or the universe that they're in, or what's going on. They're just there for the entertainment. That's true in marketing and advertising. And so what we do then is we say, cool, if they don't like the nuances, they want extreme specifics. And so what we do is we create 4 different parts of a character diamond that cannot be collapsed together, that are all antithetical to each other, that make the extreme nature of the business owner and their brand, so that we can express that to the client. A fictional example of this would be, did you ever see the TV show House?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. House? Okay. Yep. So let's talk about his character. He was neurotic.
Yeah.
He was a diagnostic genius.
Yeah.
He was an asshole, and he was an addict. Right. Yep. So those were the points that they showed from that character in every single episode. You knew what you were going to get from him. Yeah. But House worked because historically that character, which has been done many times in the past, always worked. Do you know what character that House is based on?
I don't think so.
Cool. So let's go back. Yeah. Someone who's neurotic, someone who is antisocial, someone who is a genius at doing research, somebody who is an asshole, and someone who is also an addict. Can you think of any other characters?
Oh gosh, I probably know one you say it.
One of the most famous characters of all time.
I don't know.
Let me give you a clue. What is another name for? What is another word for house?
Dwelling, living place.
Simpler than that. 4 letters.
Oh gosh, home.
Home. Huh. Can you think of a character with that name?
Oh no, put me on the spot.
How about Sherlock Holmes?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right. So let's talk about Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
He was neurotic.
Yeah.
He was an asshole.
Yep.
He was a genius at doing his research. In his case, it was crime versus medical cases. And he was an addict.
Yeah.
What was his best friend's name?
Well, yeah, Watson. I was going to say Watson, and then
what was
House has name? I forget this friend's name in House. Yeah, Wilson. That's right.
Right. So they were the same character, and in terms of writing, we know that and communication, engaging with people, that we, most human beings, most of the time, glob onto those specific things. And so what we look at then is, what are relatable characters from the past that people would recognize those characteristics of, and then try to create an alignment with that in terms of our communication. So after we define sole purpose North Star, and then the magic wand outcomes, and it's like, cool, let's build that character diamond. And from there, then one of the things that we do is based on those character diamonds, what is the 15 phrases that represent this character diamond? Okay. And then what we do is, and they have to be standalone statements that don't overlap. And what we then do is we sprinkle in 3 to 5 of these statements into everything that we put out. Right. Okay. It doesn't, and we should be able to do it like rolling dice, and whatever random one pops up is the one that we put in. Okay. Right. The idea is that then those phrases, when used over and over and over and over and over again, create the mental hook within the audience, so that they can identify with that phrase, and those phrases then tie back to the character diamond, which is what we're branding.
Interesting. So, because this is really interesting, because I literally just looked up character diamonds like last week, I think, to kind of dig into that a little bit more, for we can improve our content going out. And so this is really like timely for us too. And like
David Freeman is the inventor of character diamonds. He's a consultant to Hollywood, and also now to the video game industry, because there's a lot of characters right now in video games. Sure. And he's a genius, but he's the one that created that process.
It's really interesting. Hollywood. So how do you pick those? So my mind goes to those phrases. Like, how do you? Because I'm trying to wrap my mind around that part. Like those phrases, what could that look like that could be used interchangeably, kind of thing? I guess I can't grasp that. So I'm wondering, like, kind of.
So one of my clients is Roy H. Williams. He's known as the Wizard of Ads. He owns the 4th largest ad agency in North America for buying radio, and he's a living legend in marketing and advertising. Okay. He is a recluse. He is a polymath. He is um, he is direct,
Okay.
and he genuinely cares about people.
Okay. So that's his diamond.
That's his diamond.
Okay.
He One of the statements that we have for Roy is the risk of insult is the price of clarity.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what we know is we can use those words to define what, and then the industry that they're in and who they're talking to.
Sure.
What are the relevant pieces? So it takes work and planning. But
Yeah.
if you know the character type, you know the characteristics, and you know the industry, then what are the things that that person, if they're not saying, and in part they may already be saying some of those things. So
Right.
typically speaking, we try to get them to give some of their catchphrases to start off with to give us some direction. But any creative content creator or writer should be able to use the information from Sole Purpose North Star, Magic Wand, and the character diamond to be, and then the industry that the individual works in,
Sure.
to be able to come up with what those phrases are.
Okay. No, it's interesting. No, yeah, it's just perfect timing because, like I said, just looked this up. So I think and I think it simplifies like having those pieces, and like you said, House, and then Sherlock Holmes, having that. Are there other character diamonds that are like that we should aim to kind of fit within, like that, like psychologically, like people?
No, I said be who you are,
Okay.
and then define what not the nuanced traits of who you are, but the perceived extreme traits. And
Okay,
here's the thing about perception: it may not be reality. It could be just what's perceived, but that's what people are
seeing. Yeah.
seeing, right? And so people aren't just buying what you're selling; they're buying who you are. And so we want to perpetuate those things. Once you figure out those things, and they need to be there needs to be very little overlap. That you need to have contrast between them. But once you've created that, it's not that difficult to then be able to have that influence all of the messaging and communication moving forward. It also necessarily impacts things like design and colors and uses of fonts and all sorts of things, because the character of a thing, of a person or a business or a brand, that character can be expressed in many different ways.
Okay. I like that. Yeah, then it's be interesting for us to use for our stuff, because again, it's the perceived, what people perceive you as. I think is the important part there, not necessarily. I mean, who you are, but what people perceive outside is what should be in the diamond. So how do you figure that out? How do you figure out what the perception of you is versus how you maybe see yourself? Is that different?
Well, so there's a saying I'm sure you've used with folks that you work with. It's difficult to read the label from the inside of the bottle.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is where folks like you and I need to come in, where we need to look at the individual from the outside, and look at what their customers and others are saying to be able to analyze what that is. It's very difficult for you as an individual to have the perspective to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'm like, I just need to ask my team, and I'm sure they'll tell me how big a pain I am or whatever it is.
For some people, if you once you know what that is, then it's very easy to personify that, to live into those things.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. And I think some of that do you see people like they figure out those perceptions or they see those things, but then they still struggle to create around those due to maybe lack of confidence, or like you mentioned earlier, the imposter syndrome type things, limiting beliefs?
So for me, the folks that I work with have a level of success to begin with.
Sure.
And so to be able to get to that point, they have to have a level of confidence in themselves, to be able to have that success. Yeah. So I don't normally run into a confidence issue in the regards of imposter syndrome. That actually where we normally have any issues at all is Sole Purpose, because getting into that and that depth of the why can be a really emotional experience for a very confident person. And the Sole Purpose may be something that you want to express in your business, but is not explicitly stated. Oftentimes our clients don't say what their sole purpose is. They simply live into it and make sure that their values, which should be known by everybody, their employees and vendors and customers, and what their outcome should be known, but the sole purpose is often kept private to the individual. Okay. But that's normally where we have that problem. Getting in, look, again, if you have any measure of actual success, right. The things that we're talking about here, they should be self-apparent. right?
Yeah.
They're there. It's just a matter of someone having the understanding and perspective on how to look for those things.
Yeah, absolutely. So where would you recommend someone starting if maybe they don't necessarily have that success yet? Like they're just starting out in their business, but they want to start putting these in place so they can grow.
Well, this is where I go back to sole purpose
Okay.
first.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Um, People don't do things that they don't have some innate confidence that they can do for
Right.
some reason, whatever
Sure.
that is.
Yeah.
And that reason is usually tied to the sole purpose. So if you can
Mm,
really clearly define the why
yep.
and the supportive values, and then have a really clear picture of what the outcome is going to look like, then confidence is illusionary, right?
Mhm.
It can be there. It's a subconscious thing
Yeah.
that you can feel, but you're like, no, if you know sole purpose, values,
Yeah.
outcome, you've got the plan to be able to get there.
Yeah.
It's just about doing it at that point. And I
Doing
think
it
that
at
the
a
real
time.
difference between someone who lacks confidence and has confidence is in the doing. So if
Yeah.
you define these things, you're confident in those points, then just go and do it till you are confident.
For sure. No, I think that's spot on. And um, it's like for me in running, like I know I can run. I mean, I'm not the best, I'm not the fastest, but I know I can go run a marathon. I know I can do it. It's gonna suck. It's gonna hurt. But it's like I've done it before. So it's like I have that confidence. And my first one, I wasn't probably as confident. And now, now I know I can do it, despite any pain or, whatever might happen. And I think that's kind of, you know,
Most people have they don't do things because they have fear, and fear is
mm,
when you envision something that isn't reality
yeah.
happening,
Uh-huh.
right? It hasn't yet happened. And what I would say is most failures aren't even seen by anybody outside of yourself,
Right. Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
so the biggest critic that you have is yourself.
100%.
And so, one of my beliefs is to fail and fail efficiently,
Yeah.
because you need to fail your way into success.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can't get better unless take a shot and
You
miss
can't
and
learn.
see,
You
okay,
can't get better. You
I need
can't
to
get
tweak
right.
that. Yeah.
So for me, the only way that failure is actual failure is if you do it in a way where you don't have any learning
Mm.
and you don't
Yeah.
have any growth. And that can happen. So
Sure.
what I would say is set out to fail efficiently, and fail in a way that assures that you're learning and growing.
No, I like that. This has been fantastic. I really, I love the direction this went. Again, we don't script anything here on this podcast. We kind of just we have a main topic and we kind of just see where it goes. And this was, I think, a great direction that it took. And so, Michael, super super thankful for you sharing all that and diving into those steps of building that character diamond and things of that for messaging. So I would love for you to share, maybe things you're working on, where people can connect with you for sure if they need more help. Yeah. So where's the best place for people to go?
So what I'm most well known for the sake of your audience is promoting 131 books to the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, Business Week, and Success bestseller lists.
Yep.
And so I've been in book publishing now. By the end of this year, it'll be 27 years.
Wow.
And so I mentioned that my sole purpose is voice, helping people find, test, and amplify their voice. And so certainly we run the bestseller campaigns, which people can find out at promotabook.com. I try to keep things simple, promoteabook.com. But one of my clients, T. Harv Eker, who wrote a book titled Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, which we put to number one in the New York Times for him.
That's awesome.
A couple of years after we ran that campaign, Harv said to me, Mike, you do a really great job putting folks like me on the bestsellers list and supporting our voice and helping us change industries in the world. And he said, you should keep doing that. It's wonderful. But he said, there's a lot of people who can't afford to do what we do. That don't yet have our level of platform, that need what you're doing. You need to go figure out how to be able to do that. And so what I did then is I developed for myself a model and a system for being able to extract ideas and turn them into content that we could then turn into value for customers, which then would generate money.
Yeah.
One of the things to note is I suffer from 26 learning disabilities. I'm a high school dropout.
Wow.
And so when I developed this model, I had to do it to be able to address all of my learning disabilities so that I could get it out. I suffer from more than 2 kinds of dyslexia. So this model was developed for that. And what I've done over the years is codified that and operationalized that to the point where for people who are either just starting out or who have small to medium-sized businesses, aren't quite at the ready to go for the New York Times, but are working towards that route, we do a retreat in Guatemala 1 or 2 times a year, where it's a month-long retreat at a place called Lake Atitlan, which is a former supervolcano that is now a lake. And we spend a month there. The first week we go through my outlining process, and at the end of the process, the outline is so detailed that it eliminates the thinking of the content creator. I'm not a natural writer. I have natural writers on staff. I pay them, but I am not a natural writer. Most of my clients are not natural writers. I have a couple of exceptions like Roy Williams, but most are not natural writers. What we are storytellers. We're amazing storytellers based on the experience that we have. And so what we do then in the writing process, again, this goes to the left-right hemisphere of the brain, is we get the logicking done first so that we can satisfy the left hemisphere of the brain so that the next 3 weeks in the retreat, they're able to just answer and flesh out all of the little micro parts within the outline. So it's just bite-sized bits of information that's being written on a daily basis. And at the end of the month, they'll have a book written. And the promise of the retreat is once the book is written, my team will do the editing and the designing. And this is important for a couple of reasons. Number one, Hemingway said, there's no such thing as a good writer, only a good editor, right? And so with that, we then offer that editing so that the attendees at the retreat don't have to worry about that. The other is that because we're doing the editing and design, I have several publishers who are lined up who are willing to publish the books that come out of the retreat. Like we'll guarantee a publishing contract out of that retreat. So if folks are at that level, then I would suggest that they go to, again, I keep this simple, bookretreat.com, BOOKRETREAT.com.
That's awesome. Yeah. Everyone, if you're ready for his help, if you're at that level, definitely reach out, check that information out, get connected with Michael, and continue to grow and elevate what you're doing. But Michael, again, thanks so much for being on the Elevate Media podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And make sure if you're listening to this, if you haven't yet, subscribe to the show, follow it, like it, all that fun stuff. And then share this episode with someone who might be trying to figure out how to streamline their messaging and get it even more sticky out there, master that messaging. So together we can do so much more and help so many more people through sharing. And we appreciate everybody who listens in and shares. But until next time, continue to go out there, elevate your life, elevate your brand, and we'll talk to you again soon.